Hello and welcome back to the Real Music Talks. Today's guest is Andy, a saxophonist, actor, vocalist and music producer from Birmingham. How are you doing, Andy?
I'm fine, thanks, Dan. It's great to be here today.
Fantastic. It's great to have you. So tell me a bit more about yourself and your involvement in music.
Okay, well, as my stage name suggests, which I didn't give to myself, by the way, I'll tell you about that later, maybe. But I play the saxophone. I'm first and foremost known as a full-time professional saxophonist. I've played with lots of bands in the past, but these days probably do more solo work, either playing with DJs or I do a lot with my own backing track sets as well, where I kind of take the lead line of well-known songs and play the verses, the choruses, and improvise and mix it up and yeah. So saxophone, very much so, but also I act a little bit. Just getting into that recently. I had my first speaking role on a short movie released in 2020 with a fantastic local Birmingham producer. Sorry, not producer, director. She's also an actor, Lorna Nixon Brown, Ned and me. Had a couple of known people in there. Graeme Short, he does little caricatures. He's from Birmingham. And Lizzie Clark as well, who's up and coming in the acting world. I really enjoyed that. I was actually a football commentator for Aston Villa, and it was quite hilarious actually, because I don't follow football at all. I really don't. I've played for footballers, I've performed saxophone for footballers, but I really don't know. I'm not into the culture, so it was a very challenging role. But they all loved it, and they said I was a natural. And I hope I can get a bit more work like that, maybe even just doing voiceovers. So yeah, and yeah, I teach a little bit. I don't know if I mentioned that. And I've got into music production in the past and worked on some interesting projects, but there's a lot that I haven't delivered, which is hopefully going to be happening within the next year or so, because I've got my own little studio set up now, and a lot's happened, especially obviously with COVID. It's rocked everyone's lives. I'm sure, nobody could have predicted how the last 2 years were going to go, but I'm ready. I'm ready now for some really exciting times ahead.
Perfect. So yeah, it sounds like there's been quite a lot of variety and you've got involved in a lot of different roles, which is great. Be good if we could sort of hear your story. Maybe if you want to talk us through how you first got into music and how your career and what you did from there, really. So maybe a bit of a timeline.
Okay. What right from way back?
If you can remember about
that far. Well, the truth of it is that, as with many of us, my first engagement with being a wind player was really at primary school, playing recorder. Most people, I think the first time they get involved with music is that very thing, the recorder, because it's a cheap way and a very effective way of teaching kids music and getting them to play together as an ensemble, and I show talent for that, and they recognised that, bless them, at the primary school I went to, All Saints, and hence put me onto clarinet. And I started playing clarinet from the age of 7, and I was quite happy on that until I got to about 13, heard the saxophone. He was like, "Mom, I want one of those," and and bless her, she supported me and bought a saxophone on the actual school scheme at the time, which was VAT exempt. I think that was the incentive, sort of, to help parents buy these instruments for their kids, and it's been non-stop ever since. I think by the time I hit 16, I was really confident that saxophone was going to be where I'm heading, really. And I'd done my grade 8 ABRSM by the time I was 16, and my skills were quite good, and it was the only thing that I loved doing, really, and that I didn't see as work, and wasn't that great at much else. So it was like a bit of a 2+2, and then I went to enrolled into Birmingham Conservatoire the then Birmingham Conservatoire, which has since been knocked down. Now it's the Royal Birmingham Conservatoire, and it's in a brand new purpose-built massive building the other side of town. And did 4 years there on a classical performance degree. So I did a Bachelor of Music with honours. 4 years of some amazing tuition, amazing experiences. You know, really did shape me a lot, that 4 years. And you know, one or two of the years, I'm not going to say all four, but for at least one or two of them, I did practice really hard. So, you know, if it wasn't for that experience, I wouldn't have engaged, you know, as deep with the whole music thing as I, you know, have done and did. So yeah, where do we go now? That seems like such a long time ago. After that, I suppose a big key thing was when I was at Conservatoire, I established a salsa band with my brother, an authentic Cuban salsa band, because he's a fluent Spanish speaker, and he's a good musician. And you know, we kind of, it was a natural thing. He knew saxophone was my thing, and we're both listening to jazz, and then we got into salsa and Afro-Cuban music, and you know, we were out dancing it. You know, we were you know, living salsa for quite a long time actually, and we put a band together, and we ended up touring a lot of nice art centres up and down the country and playing a lot of nice events. We played the Ronnie Scott's in Birmingham back then, which is not there anymore. We played Symphony Hall in Birmingham. We played at the Lowry in Manchester. I don't know if you heard of the Lowry Theatre. We played for corporate events in London. We played for Sayat and a couple of other big companies. And we played at Glastonbury as well, 2010, on one of their world stages. And we even supported Plan B, who I toured with in 2010, because he loved the salsa band, and that was, he wanted us to actually support him on a couple of gigs back then. So yeah, after the salsa band, gosh, we did that for quite a long time, and it's still running now. We're resident at the Jam House in Birmingham in St Paul Square on the last Thursday of every month. Me and Hugh, who plays timbales of the band, are the only original two members. The band started in '97, so God, that's 25 years coming June now. The band has been going, and yeah, that's our staple gig. We do the odd other gigs here and there, but like I say, most of my stuff has been solo, very much so in the last 10-15 years. And I did touch upon that the time when I toured with Plan B on his UK tour of the Defamation of Strickland Banks album in 2010. I was his live saxophonist on a lot of those UK festival gigs and all the TV work that year. We did Jules Holland and Alan Carr's Chatty Man and Evo music rooms for Channel 4 and a few other things. So that was a really good year. And I suppose in many ways that Plan B year in 2010 is the year I decided that I was going to actually do this full time and not support it with anything else. Because after finishing my degree, up until that time, finished my degree in 1999, and up until about 2010, I was always having to support the music with a part-time job. You know, either I worked in secondary schools, I worked in colleges. When I was a bit younger, I was waiting on in bars and restaurants as well. So it was that Plan B break in 2010 that really gave me the confidence to say, right, now's the time to sort of just do this and nothing but this.
That's really interesting, because I think a lot of people struggle to make that step. So like, how did you decide that that was the right time?
It was just, I suppose it was like, it was a crazy thing because, you know, I'm from Birmingham. All the guys are East London. I mean, Plan B's from Forest Gate, and a lot of the guys, close to him and that were in the band at the time are also from that area. So I was an outsider in some ways, but I still felt very much part of the team for my time with them. I'd literally, the story is, I was playing in Delhi in India on a corporate booking through an agency on a Friday night, and I got a phone call from Delhi from oh God, who was it? It was Alex. It was one of a Birmingham promoter. Have you heard of Rock and Roller? Like house music, dance music? No. Okay. But out of that crew came Will Bailey, Low Stepper. Have you heard of the producer, musician Low Stepper, DJ? Yeah, well, he came out of that crew. But anyway, cut a short story long. He called me, and I was in India, and it was early April. It was like early April 2010. I was performing for an engagement for quite a wealthy family over there, and they put us up at the Grand in New Delhi. And I got a phone call when I got back to the hotel. Andy, what are you doing? I said, I'm in India. I'm in Delhi. And he says, do you fancy doing a gig in Birmingham tomorrow night? And I was like, yeah, all right then. So it was crazy, really, because I had to get back to Heathrow, and then my brother picked me up, and I was really tired. Got to Birmingham, and put the only set of clothes that I could put on. The rest are all screwed up or whatever. When you're traveling, and got to this club, plugged my stuff in. Really, really, really tired. I thought under normal circumstances I wouldn't have done it, but I'd give him my word. And lo and behold, Plan B and his band had just played locally at the O2 in Birmingham, and they'd just gone there for a drink after the gig, and he heard me play, and he said, "You're coming on tour with me, bruv," or something to that extent, and I was like, "All right," but I really didn't know who he was, and I mean, he was known before, but I think it was that album that really blew him up commercially massively. And but I hadn't really been following pop culture really closely for a while leading up to that point. So I didn't think nothing of it until Monday. I got a phone call, and he says, "Can you do Jules Holland next Tuesday?" And then and I was working for an agency as a secondary school teacher at the time. In the week, other than doing my gigs on the weekend, and I packed that in, and I went on tour with him for the whole of that summer, and it ended in the autumn. They went on to tour Europe and US, but they slimmed the band down for that tour for economic reasons, So I wasn't part of that. Another backing vocalist wasn't part of that. Guitar tech, another couple of technical crew. They slimmed the operation down for the foreign tours, and that was it, man. I said, okay, right. People kind of know me now a little bit better. It's time to, if you're going to take this risk, it's now or never.
Makes perfect sense. I think it'd be good because obviously touring with Plan B, it'd be good to hear maybe like a really funny or entertaining story or something crazy that happened. I don't know if you can think of anything off the top of your head.
I can. I can lots of things, but I'm just trying to be safe about it. I'm not suggesting loads of debauchery happen, but it was a rock and roll summer, I'm not gonna lie. Oh man, oh God, my mind's flashing through so many different things. The one thing I do remember Radio 1's big weekend. I'm trying to remember where it was that summer, but all the artist area, I think Tiny Temper and a lot of other big names at the time were all next door to each other, but there was no ceiling on any of the other green rooms, so everyone could hear. Kind of, if you made enough of a racket, you knew that there was a lot of party going on in that room. So Ben just wanted to start jamming, and I think Cassell was tapping away on something, and you know, guys were beatboxing, Faith was beatboxing, and I was playing sax, and we're just like having a jam in a no ceiling room with all the other artists surrounding us, and that was a vibe. That was a vibe.
Nice. Did anyone else join in? Like any random people to sort of come into it, or?
No, it was very much of a Plan B crew kicking up noise and kind of just enjoying the roller coaster. You know, it was just a vibe, and you know, coming out in the corridor and you're seeing Dappy there, and you're seeing Tiny Temper there, and you know, other people there. It's just like, it's just good fun, you know, when you're partying in those kind of places. You know?
Yeah, I can imagine. So after the touring and everything, you know, you said you did a lot more like solo stuff. Do you want to talk me through that transition?
Well, after the tour, to be honest with you, even during the tour, I was involved in projects with my brother, my two brothers, and other musicians from the salsa band Del Camino. Although at the time we were called Orquesta Huracan, but now we're called Del Camino. But you know, out of the salsa band, in many ways, was born a reggae band that we were pushing at the time called One Eye. And, you know, we had some success in terms of David Rodigan championed us on his Radio 1 Extra show, and he was billing us at the time as the, you know, the next best thing to come out of Birmingham since UB40 or something to that effect. Or, you know, he was really excited for it as new UK reggae at the time. And, you know, it had a classic sound. You know, we weren't like modern kind of heavy studio produced reggae. It was like all live, you know, and you know, with different elements from old school styles in there, like your Lovers Rock, and yeah, we supported Jimmy Cliff on the UK leg of his world tour, and we supported Toots and the Maytals, and we supported, who else did we support? We supported the Twinkle Brothers and a few big names actually, and you know, we played a couple of nice festivals like Shambhala, but it was just really hard to. It was a really tough thing, even though we felt we had a great album, Worries and Trouble, and you know, it was really tough to break through at the time. And you know, when money's not coming in through the door and there's 10 of you, things can get tricky. You know?
Yeah, that's a lot of people to feed. And I've always remembered, you know, like the more artists that you've got within a band, like if it's a 20-piece band, you've got to split those fees between 20 people, right? So it makes it a lot harder to cover everything.
Yeah, it was, you know, there was a lot of drive there. You know, we recorded it all ourselves, we produced it all ourselves. You know, we worked with some, you know, great people. Gavin Monaghan, great producer in the Midlands. He had a lot to play in the production of the album, and very much so. The guy who was actually playing bass in the band, who's a brilliant producer, James Crossdale. He goes under the name of Elevation with a Y, YLLAVATIO, or something like that. James Elevation Crossdale. Check him out. He was a bass player and chief producer, and he did the beat for the production on the album. And yeah, we had a lot of good feedback, but it's one thing getting good feedback, and it's another thing, you know, getting that big important break that you need to really get a project like that up on its feet properly. You know, so a lot of the supports that we did and the festivals that we did were brilliant, great fun, but you know, inevitably a reality check is due, and you know, people felt like we needed to move on, so we did. You know, and really that project was very much a big thing between 29, 28, 2008 till about 16. So that kind of, you know, that project, as well as my own personal individual gigs, kind of took up the most part of 2010 to the end of the last decade, really.
Makes sense. So I just want to unpick some of the different things that you said a little bit as well. You know, a lot of the sort of audience that watch this are quite like new to their journey within music. Be good if you could kind of speak about some of the biggest challenges you faced and what kind of has been key to your success.
The challenge, so many challenges. You know, it's to be a successful musician, a session musician, or I don't know, whatever, however you want to call it. You know, I do lots of different things. You know, like I said, I do my backing tracks. I play along with DJs. I play in bands. You know, I've been doing bit more. I've been doing a few more recording sessions recently, and teach. I think you have to be flexible, and you have to be, you know, be able to do all those different things, because not any one thing's always going to save you. You know, in terms of income and being really organized. What a lot of people don't see is behind the scenes is the amount of hours I spend sitting in front of the computer, staring at the screen, getting back to people, and you know, the booking confirmations, the invoicing, the contracts. You know, it all takes a lot of time, and people don't see that, as well as you trying to promote yourself, you know, on all the regular platforms like Insta and Facebook, etc. You know, and making it interesting, and not just checking in at that venue and, you know, blah blah blah. You know, at least a little bit of video, or, you know, a nice photo to just show what you're doing. And, you know, it's a you've got to love it, otherwise you ain't going to do it. You know, you've got to say, all right, this is what I do. Put your hands up in the air and dive in, and just, you know, you're going to take the horns from every angle. Another good thing that I did in lockdown was rewrite my website. That was crucial, because I really wasn't well represented on the internet up until that point. I don't think, not as well as I am now. And that was super important. And, you know, working out what, you know, when you're looking at your key phrases and your key words, like, look, really taking the time to find out what's relevant to you and what you're offering, you know, because if you're trying to appeal to people like that, as everyone else does in this modern day, you know, you have to be that savvy and that to the point, really, and put some good content up there, you know, really talk about yourself, about what you've done, and, you know, videos, obviously, and not just having a picture gallery for the sake of it, having pictures to support your story, and talk about the places that you've played. You know, I've put different pages up for different cities that I've played in, and just talked a little bit of what I've done in those cities over the years. And a lot of those venues don't exist anymore, and they've since been converted into flats and whatever. But you kind of put that into the story, because it's what it is, you know, showing people that you know, what you've done a fair bit over, you know, a sustained period of time. I mean, I'm talking about an older, more seasoned musician now, but even younger musicians, just really be savvy with your content, and really sort of push yourself in the right way. Get those great vids of yourself performing, and, you know, get other people on board to help you out. Obviously, it's hard to manage when you're by yourself, and that's another hard thing when you're traveling solo as a musician. Is like holding a camera up on yourself. And believe you me, I've done loads of one-handed saxophone videos where I'm playing like 3 notes and filming the whole situation. So yeah, like, I don't know if any of that kind of helps answer the question at all, really.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you talked about like social media a little bit there. Maybe, you know, like, I mean, you must have seen the change over time, right, with the music industry. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? I know the music industry is very different to what it used to be, but maybe talk about some of the biggest changes that you've seen over your time.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm you know, I'm in my 40s, and I first started playing with swing bands when I was 13, in like social clubs, and, you know, like, where, you know, Tipton Conservative Club, you know, those kind of places where there was still a that was the drag ends of a scene where dance bands would do foxtrots and waltzes, and they'd have a big bunch of people who'd actually want to come along and dance to that and do all those, I suppose, more traditional kind of dances. But in those days, bands were playing all over the shop a lot more, and definitely it was definitely more of a live culture in terms of opportunities for bands. I think that I've definitely seen that diminish across all corners, really. Not just like pop and rock venues, but jazz and other types of music where maybe they had more of a shout years ago, like folk venues as well. There seems to be less venues for live now, I think, on the whole, although there's still places that are pulling punches and there's still a lot of people doing great stuff. I just don't think it's as widespread as it used to be. I think the DJ culture has definitely taken over, and I think that's why I kind of went with it in terms of saying, well, I don't mind playing over house music and club music and dance music, and this is where I can see it going. I kind of surf the wave in many respects in terms of the way the whole scene seemed to be changing, in my younger years. I mean, I suppose I'm talking from a live perspective, really, but obviously with downloads and streaming and streaming's a hot topic, amongst, and has been for a long time now amongst a lot of musicians in terms of how fair or probably more likely unfair it is. So I personally think that we're in a time, even though it's tougher to break through on some of the more traditional formats like gig circuit, live music venues, etc. I think definitely now you got a much better chance in being heard if if you got a strong sound or a strong, you know exactly what you want to do, and you've got a good strategy as to how you're going to get people talking about it, in terms of the way you put out your videos and put out your content. That was never, when I was younger, obviously we were nowhere near that at the time, so those opportunities were just simply not there. You're relying on A&R people, which was like all dwindling at the time anyway, and old-fashioned methods, which were most definitely on the way out 20-30 years ago, let alone now. I can't imagine, do A&R people even go out anymore? Maybe to certain London events, but I don't know, do they still go up and down the country like years ago?
I don't know, but I think if you're sort of putting all your chances on picked up by an A&R person at a gig, that isn't something that really happens anymore, I don't think.
No, not at all. And like I say, I had a lucky break, not quite the same, but like similarly, where Ben Drew saw me at a Birmingham gig and I had a lucky break. But you can't bank on those lucky breaks, and even though it was a great experience, it's not all right, I've done this now, that's it now, I'm sorted. You still got a ton of work to do to really get yourself up there and get yourself in demand, and and talking about demand and inquiries, as a result, being so busy now, I have established it already, a boutique agency called Top Brass Entertainment, but it's just about to get a big overhaul. I'm spending a few quid on a new website, and I think the team will be expanding soon as well, with another creative director and maybe some admin roles not long after that too. And so yeah, the agency is very much becoming a big part of my life as well now, simply because I've got that much influx of inquiry. It's like it'd be a crying shame not to.
Nice, no, that makes sense. Andy, we're nearly out of time now. It's been really great chatting. It's flown by. But from here, it'd be good to hear maybe like what's your plan from the future, and if there's anything else you want to leave the audience with, feel free.
My plans for the future, I'll just the last thing I mentioned there was the agency. I really want to get that on the ground. I've got some great artists on there. Check it out, topbrassentertainment.com. It's in its early stages now, but in a couple of months' time, it's going to be looking a lot more. It will be a lot more engaging. But still, now you can go and see the profiles. You can see the videos. Got brilliant artists on there. I feel proud when these guys go out on the gigs that I'm putting them out, sending them out to. I'm doing all the gigs at a lovely restaurant on a lake, well, like a pool in Sutton Coldfield, in Sutton Park, called Bracebridge. All my artists. I'm the resident agent there, and also I'm doing a new venue in Leamington Spa called Bedford Street, which is already a popular live music venue, and no doubt we'll be doing a lot more there, as well as a couple of exciting things in Birmingham. So the agencies are definitely a big thing, but I really want to get back into my music production now that I've got everything else bubbling away nicely, because I used to really love putting a lot of interesting stuff together. And I've done a couple of projects with a couple of producers recently. There's one on the way with Jeremy Sylvester, who's a well-known house garage producer. He's got a company called Urban Dubs. We've done a great track with Vicky Vian Nash. She's a great vocalist. Check her out. And also we've got Brian Corbett playing trumpet and flugel on there as well, who he is the trumpeter for the Brand New Heavies. He's their man for trumpet, but he's done loads of great solo stuff as well as a jazz musician and other stuff. So we're looking at doing some more tracks with that same team of people. But on that note, now I've got so many artists, surrounded with so many artists with the agency. I really love to, do some more interesting projects on the music production, and putting some great tracks together, and getting some great voices and people out there, and letting the world know that there's much more going on than they might think. In terms of, you said something about advice. Did you say something about advising to?
It's just anything else you'd like to leave the audience with, really.
Just like, if you're a musician and you want to do it full time, whatever you're doing, whether you work solo, whether you work within a group, or whatever, you've got to I suppose it's a cliche, it's just lots of hard work, self-belief, putting the hours in, having a clear strategy, setting yourself targets and achieving those targets before you move on to new ones. Don't try and cloud yourself with too many big things, unachievable big things in one big pot. Sort of break it down and make it achievable, and bit by bit, and look at the long-term plan. So, but yeah, lots of work online in terms of the social networks, but lots of organizing as well. Because if you want people to take you seriously, you've got to show them that you're serious in the way you conduct your business as well.
Perfect. That's perfect. Nice one, Andy. Thanks.
No worries. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I look forward to watching this back.
Thanks, Andy. Appreciate your time. Take care, everyone. See you next time.
Bye.